Hey everyone, welcome to the Fortress of Solitude podcast. I'm your host, Sergio Pereira, and today I am joined by... Okay, wait for it. I'm joined by Lois. Lois. What's happening, Lois?
Hey, what's happening, man?
How's it going?
I don't know what to expect. I sat there just like, how do I react?
It's like pretty much just because I've just been watching a lot of Ted Lasso, and obviously, Jamie Tart from the show, like the star footballer, and it's like that whole song with Jamie Tart. So like, it's just been in my head like the whole day, and like I've been even trolling like Jared, the Fortress Solitude editor, like just coming up with new names, like just doing the song search. And everyone knows it's Baby Shark, but I mean it's like it's Baby Shark or something else.
Just in time for the Euros tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, man, Lois, it's great to have you again. I mean, it's always fun to have you on the show. That's a one thing.
Thank you. It's always fun to be here.
Yeah, we just have so much fun, like discussing like a whole bunch of nonsense and a whole lot of, things. And it's great to just, sometimes chat to someone who is actually passionate about it as well versus like, where a lot of people are just trolls.
It's true.
But today we've got a really cool topic to discuss. I mean, it's a bit of news that's been doing the rounds on the interwebs, and that is the possibility of Hugh Jackman returning as Wolverine for the MCU.
Hectic.
And I mean, look, to be fair, I think a lot of speculation is coming out of nothing because he posted 2 photos on his like Instagram stories. One is like a Boss Logic art of like, the Wolverine claws, and the other one is just him with, Lord Feige. And the thing is like, you know what? Have we become that sort of generation now where like whatever you post on your Instagram story is like confirmed, like it's like literally reminds me of football, like Paul Pogba like goes to, goes to Spain or something. He sits down at a restaurant in Barcelona, confirmed Paul Pogba is moving to Barcelona.
Yeah.
Look, I think, there's something to be said. I mean, obviously, Hugh knows exactly what he's doing by posting a picture like that. He knows it's going to rattle the cages and people are going to start talking. I mean, as a celebrity, you're bound to know that.
Yeah.
So either he's just having a little bit of fun or it could mean something.
Yeah, I mean, look, the internet wants a scoop all the time. I feel like it's been this way for a while where like, you give it crumbs and that's enough for like a 15-minute YouTube video with a big thumbnail.
Like we're doing, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, like we're doing. Exactly, 100%. So thanks, Hugh. But I mean, I'm not looking too deep into it, but I wouldn't be mad, at some kind of return. What's your thoughts?
Look, a lot of people don't know this, but Wolverine was actually one of my very first like favorite comic book characters. It was like Wolverine and Batman. And I remember watching the X-Men animated series religiously when I was a kid. I just love that show, and I picked up the action figures and it got me into the comics. That show is actually the one that got me into X-Men comics. And I've always loved the character, and especially Cal Dodd's voice, like in X-Men animated series, that gruff voice, and it was like a tough guy. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. So when the X-Men movie was coming out, obviously I was excited at the time, thinking, oh, wow, who's they going to cast as Wolverine? And they cast this like no-name, Australian actor. And I'm like, who's this Hugh Jackman?
Who's this guy?
Who's this guy?
Who do you think he is?
Exactly.
I'm sorry about that.
It's terrible. But anyways, like, you see him and, Wolverine is supposed to be like a short and stocky sort of guy. And Hugh is like, tall and like, he's supposed to be handsome and all of that. So for me, I was like, okay, but then when I saw him on screen, I was like, wow, okay, this guy convinced me. Like he was perfect as Wolverine. He had the hair down, he had the attitude down, and he brought a different dimension to the character. And I think he did it really well for 17 years. I mean, even in movies where like the story wasn't that great. I mean, like we talk about like X-Men 3, The Last Stand, for example, which I thought was one of the weaker ones. I thought he was fantastic in it. He did really well. And I think with everything he did, it was fantastic. And he had the role for 17 years, man. It's like
that's a while.
That's a long, long time. A lot of actors don't get their chance. I mean, I can't even right now. I don't have the numbers next to me of how many movies he actually starred as Wolverine in, but it was a show, basically.
I'm sure it's at least 8, right, or something.
Probably, something around there. But
something super high, yeah.
He starred in a lot of movies, and he had a really good send-off, I think, in Logan. I think Logan was done really well. It was kind of like that whole Western send-off, like, okay, it's time to, pass it on to the next generation. And it was done really well. And he said, like, that's it. It's time. I'm out.
Yeah.
And personally, like, I think that if your story wraps up, if you get a story arc that's wrapped up and, you know, there's no more places for you to go, it's fine. It's okay. Like, leave.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, about this news. Like, and I know I've wrote about it for Fortress as well. Like, I just feel that him coming back would be a very bad idea.
Okay. And does it depend how he comes back? Or you know, would there be an acceptable version of him coming back?
Personally, I just feel that it's an over-reliance on nostalgia that is like, you know, it's kind of killing fandom a little bit.
Right.
I mean, let me give you an example. Right now, we all know that Michael Keaton is coming back as Batman, you know, for the Flash movie. And, you know, there's a lot of excitement and stuff like that. But I kind of feel, in one way, I'm excited about it because he was the first Batman for me. And obviously, I've got feelings towards it. I do kind of feel that we are relying on the past to move forward. And it's one of those things where sometimes it's best just to carry on and move on. Like, we've had the time, we can look back on it fondly and have those memories and say, hey, those were really great memories. But we don't need to keep tapping into nostalgia. There are a lot of other actors out there who deserve the role as well. A lot of people to, you know, refresh it, bring something different. I mean, Hugh will always be the standard. Make no mistake about it. He was Wolverine for like a generation of fans. I mean, for nearly 20 years, for nearly 2 decades, he was the face Wolverine. No one else has played the character like
now it's going to be Daniel Radcliffe. I mean, like, how does he?
I know what you're saying. But exactly. So here's an example of how it can change, and you can have somebody different, see what somebody else brings to a different dimension to the role, whatever. And I just find that as a fandom, we're always relying on going back to the past to do things. Oh, well, we need to bring this one back, or we need to do that. It's like, even to an aspect of, like, you know, let's say, you know, Ben Affleck, you know, that he wants to like leave being Batman. I do feel in a sense that, okay, he didn't necessarily get the closure that he wanted. Okay, maybe, you know, the Snyder Cut was a better closure for him.
Right.
But you know what? If the actor wants to move on and do things, we shouldn't be like always trying to bring them back. There are lots of other stories and lots of other actors. At the end of the day, you know, they are human beings. You know, we should not let them just be defined by one thing that they do.
Right. Exactly. And I think there's a lot to go into it. I mean, for example, you know, how old is Hugh at this point? Close to 50?
I think he's 51 or 52, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So, okay, you know, there's a lot of actors in their 50s who, you know, they're in great shape and stuff. But, like, the training for Wolverine specifically is a lot of work. I think he's mentioned it a couple times. Yeah. And it's intense on the body, man. Like, every single time, you know, I don't even know if it's that healthy to go so hardcore. And I feel like he's had his time, you know. It's a lot to ask of him, and like you said already, Logan had a finality to it. Yeah, and I think it's okay to let that happen. I mean, so Patrick Stewart, who I think plays or played Professor X, right? Yeah, correct. Yeah. So he had a conversation with Kevin Feige at some stage. I think it was in January of this year, and he said to him, what he mentioned about the conversation to the public was that it was a long conversation, but that ultimately, when spoken about, like, you know, would he feature in future films or would he be part of like future Marvel things? What he said to Kevin Feige was, if it wasn't for Logan, you know, very possibly. But he feels though like the finality of Logan just really closed up his character. I think at some sort he said, like, if his character dies, then he would put the character to rest. Basically, he would kind of let that go. And I wonder if he's going to maybe stick with that. But I agree with it.
Look, I mean, I think, you know, when it comes to Hollywood, money talks. I mean, we know that. And I think that's the thing with, obviously, the MCU. They're going to want to, you know, make it as big as possible when the X-Men arrive, because we know the X-Men are super popular. Right. But at the same time, like I said, I would love to see a new group of characters, like new actors taking on the roles and seeing what they do. It's like, it's a new story, it's a new start, it's something fresh, you know, to do that. And it doesn't mean that whatever's happened before completely disappears. It's kind of like, you know, reboots. For example, like a lot of people have issues with reboots. They're always like, no, why are they rebooting things? And I've always said before, rebooting something doesn't necessarily mean that it eliminates everything that happened before. It's a reimagine. Yes, sometimes reboots are not that great, and sometimes it is pretty much a cash-in. We know that. But it doesn't change anything in the past, and you still have that movie that existed that you fell in love with, all those years before. And sometimes, the reboots do some cool stuff. And in much the same way with the X-Men, I mean, we've already seen the X-Men kind of have a soft reboot in the case of James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender taking over the roles. We've seen that already, and it proved pretty successful. I mean, nobody turned around and said, you know what? We missed, what's Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. Yes, obviously it didn't degrade them in that sense, but they said these actors were really good in the part, and eventually we did see them interact as well on screen in Days of Future Past.
And they gave us a new angle as well. Like, it wasn't exactly like copy paste.
Yes, exactly.
Just with fresh actors. It was a new angle, which was appreciated.
And that's the thing. I just find that what are they going to do? First of all, to bring back Hugh Jackman it has to be a long-term thing. Because
do you think so?
Of course, because I mean the X-Men, you've got the X-Men, it's like Spider-Man. You're going to want to make a series of movies. It's not going to be a case of I don't want to be horrible here to say, but the Eternals. The Eternals, I would imagine getting one movie, maybe two max, and maybe the characters popping up elsewhere. But in the grand scheme of things, you cannot compare the characters of the Eternals to the likes of Iron Man, Thor, Spider-Man. It's same as the X-Men. X-Men is a huge franchise by itself.
Yeah.
But the X-Men doesn't really need the MCU. But if it is part of the MCU, you are going to get multiple films. At the same time, Wolverine is the most popular X-Men character. We know that. So you will need somebody to be committed to the cause for a while. You can't have an actor just committing for, one movie and a couple cameos. You're going to need somebody to commit, especially because they're probably going to plan it out and flesh it out with I'd say 3 movies to start off with. Obviously spread out over a couple of years, and possibly X-Men popping up in a team up movie or another. But something's going to happen in that sense. So you need to have somebody that's committed, that's going to be doing it. And as you said, I mean, Jackman already is he's over 50, and I mean, he mentioned, I remember he trained with The Rock, I think, to get into shape for one of the Wolverine, and he said it was intense. But
The Rock is also over 50, I think.
No, The Rock, I think, is
almost 50. He's close.
He's close. He could be. He could be close. But I mean, look, The Rock is, The Rock. He's the most electrifying man in sports entertainment.
Yeah.
So we can't compare.
Can always smell what he's cooking.
Exactly. And I just think that Huey is also an actor that, I mean, he comes from a theater background. We've seen him nominated for an Oscar. He's been taking on a lot of different roles and a lot of juicier, meatier parts. And I think that he's got the right to explore this opportunity. It's every actor that's been in the MCU, the likes of Robert Downey Jr. and even Chris Evans. And they've all said, it's great to do the parts and, they're thankful for it. But at the same time, they'd love to do something else. Once you sign to a franchise, you're bound to it for effectively 10 years. You have to work your entire schedule around it. And that means you're going to have to give up other parts. You're going to have to give up other potential roles that you want. So, sure, you make a lot of money. I'm pretty certain that, you get paid handsomely and, you do a lot of appearances and you're kind of set for life. But from a creative fulfillment perspective, are you really creatively fulfilled if you're just stuck with one role for 10 years?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, that's the thing. If he was to make an appearance, I could imagine maybe in the likes of the new Doctor Strange, if there are multiverses, or even what's a Spider-Man 3 as well, to kind of show maybe a different world, you make a cameo to basically hand over, pass the baton sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's one of the only ways that I will accept it. And sorry, there's an airplane outside. That I'll accept it, I think, without it being kind of forced that we have to do the Jackman thing again, which, I mean, I wouldn't hate, but for him, I think it's unfair. And I think he's had his time with it. I think I wouldn't mind it as a cameo.
Yeah, look, again, I'm still torn about that, to be honest. I don't know if it's just me, but right now it feels like this whole multiverse thing that, the MCU and DC is doing. It kind of feels like, they've run out of ideas.
Because it's an easy way to do anything with the multiverse, right?
Exactly, and it's just bring in nostalgia, just throw in all these characters, bring in Batfleck, bring in Michael Keaton, bring back Tobey Maguire, bring back Andrew Garfield, bring back Doc Ock. It's okay, guys, but what is this doing to move forward the stories? Are we just... Is it just fan service? Because if it's just fan service, then, I don't know. It's just how long can you do that for?
Yeah, it does run itself into the ground eventually, where quality of story and direction gets lost for the favor of just gags and just hitting the nail on fan service. And I think it's happened with a few different superhero films before. So yeah, I really hope that doesn't happen in the MCU, but I don't know, it might.
You know, like I'm actually working on at the moment. I'm writing a script for like, you know, one of my other projects that I work on, and it's basically about, you know, superheroes and like the history of superheroes in cinema. And like the one thing I've been doing, like I've obviously been researching quite a bit and going back in time and reading up about a lot of the movies. And the one thing that I've noticed is that at every peak of like when superheroes are like on top, Hollywood inevitably screws it up. And the way that Hollywood does it is because they realize the franchise potential versus the quality of movie. So what they basically do is the same thing that happened with around Batman and Robin. You know, like you had Tim Burton's Batman that did really well. You had Batman Returns that got really great reviews. Maybe it didn't make the same amount of money. And then they realized, you know, we've got a franchise on our hands. We can sell toys. We can, you know, sell merchandise. That's all that we're going to do. And it went in that direction, and then it eventually exploded with Batman and Robin. It was just like, you know, everyone was like, they could see exactly what it was. It was just it was a long toy commercial. That's all that it was. Then, you know, it took a few years for them to regroup. They got back into it. Then it was like the X-Men came out. Then Spider-Man came out. And it started building up again, you know, a little bit more. And everyone's like, oh, you know, superheroes are back. Then you had the likes of Spider-Man 3 at that time. And you had Superman Returns. A lot of movies where they just... You started realizing it was just about franchises. You know, that was the thing. And it burst again, the bubble, until The Dark Knight came and did something different. Because it was like, it wasn't trying to be like everything else. It was like, let's do something fresh and something new.
Right.
And then obviously we had the MCU building a shared universe. But I think we're kind of going to that point again, to be honest. I mean, look, this bubble has lasted a lot longer than other eras. But we're getting to the point now where it's a case of like we are relying on nostalgia, and we're like, let's set up a franchise, let's bring back everyone and make this like this huge thing. And you know, to be honest, it kind of feels like a WWE reunion show. We bring back like all these old guys that are like way past like, you know, retirement. And we have them there just, you know, for the fans to be happy about something, you know, a character and that they enjoyed in 1995. It's like, let it go, man. Let it go. It's like you'll be fine. Like, embrace the future, embrace something new, let creativity shine. Like this whole thing where we're just going back to the past, like, no, let's just revisit it one more time, let's just bring it back, let it go.
I think they even mentioned in like the Creed, which, you know, following the Rocky movies, Creed with Michael B. Jordan, I think they said the next sequel like wouldn't include Sylvester Stallone, and I was like, well, finally, I think it's good. Otherwise you just, you know, it's fine to build on something but not to rely on it for the future success.
No, absolutely. And I agree with you there as well. You know, if you're trying to do something new, do something that hasn't been seen before, do something that's going to feel fresh, it's going to feel different. I understand, obviously, from a studio perspective, there are these billion-dollar industries that they want, you know, they want to make as much money, like as much return on investment as they can. Naturally, we understand that. But at some point as well, you know, the fans are going to sniff you out. They're going to know exactly what you're doing. And we've seen the bubble before burst, and we've seen it burst spectacularly. And it might happen again, because that's the thing. It's like, and I truly believe, you know, including Jackman as Wolverine again, it's the same sort of thing. It's like, well, this is an easy win. We don't have to cast anyone else. We just go get Hugh Jackman and, you know, fans will be happy. Yeah. Okay, great. But what are you doing to advance all the X-Men movies that come before you? Like, are you doing anything different?
Yeah,
no.
I think it does do the franchise a disservice to not weigh your options, or at least maybe do it in a classy way, you know, in a way that's not like, you know, paste in your face, like, here we go, here's fan service. Because often you see it and like you notice it immediately. Like there's something that's just like a scene that'll pop up in one of the Marvel movies, and you'll go like, well, that's a check on, like a tick on the box. It's not there because it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, everyone just kind of rolls their eyes a little bit, whether it's like a certain joke or whether it's or whatever.
But it's like, if you look at, for example, I would feel like really hard done by if I was one of the actors from The New Mutants, as an example. That movie, like, I mean, my grandfather was like excited for it when he was a little boy, and it only got released, you know, like last year. Yeah. So, you know, that movie was like in development hell, well, for like years. I think for 5 years. It was supposed to come out in 2016 or somewhere around there. It was delayed. And that was also supposed to kickstart effectively a new, you know, Marvel universe, like new Marvel characters there.
Like a darker kind of
Yeah, but it was supposed to have some crossover with X-Men, and then that had to get recut and redone several times to remove any references to the X-Men, basically, because, or like, you know, the X-Men that we know from the Fox movies, because this was just going to be a standalone movie that was just going to be released. Now, you kind of think about, you know, those actors that were involved in that. It's not their fault that this movie, you know, basically got released when there was a merger taking place.
Yeah.
That, you know, everything got delayed, and now they're not going to be considered to be part of the MCU going forward, effectively. No one really cares. Now suddenly you bring back Hugh Jackman and you explain, oh, well, it's Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. That's a pretty crappy thing to do to everyone else, because you've kind of lost an opportunity to have your own franchise as well, just because of, like, you know, studio politics, effectively.
But I always find it a little bit sad when people like ask questions about, oh, what happened to this guy or that guy, and like someone who knows the universe well has to explain, no, it's corporate politics. You know, like it kind of takes away from the art a little bit.
That's the thing. It's like, if you're going to commit to something, then at least do it properly. Like, this is the only circumstance where I will accept, like, Wolverine, Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine. This is my ideal premise.
Okay.
If they bring back all the actors that were involved in the Fox movies, like in the latest ones, like James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, because they are set in a specific time. Logan is set in the future. So you still have time to play with that in the sense of, like, okay, bring back that core cast and carry on that story. If you can carry on from there, I will accept that, because then I still feel there's a lot of unresolved issues there. And unresolved, like, you know, we kind of saw them fight. I mean, it was the Dark Phoenix, the last one that we saw.
Yeah.
But we didn't see Jean Grey come back. We didn't see basically them develop into, like, bigger characters, because they were still basically in the infancy as the X-Men. I would accept that. In terms of, like, if you're going to bring back Wolverine there, you're going to be like, okay, cool. That took place, I think, in the 90s. We can kind of set it in the 2000s or something, or bring it to current times and have Wolverine be part of the storyline. And we still know that it doesn't impact what happens in the future.
Right. No, I agree. I think it needs to be done in a smart way.
But yeah, not this thing of like, oh, yeah, here's a cameo, everybody like in the cinema, yay! Stop it, please. If you're cheering it, you're part of the problem. That's what I say. But yeah, I mean, it's like, you know what, we want to create iconic moments, and the fact is, I think the MCU has shown that it's capable of creating iconic moments. You know, with new characters and new actors and new storylines and things that haven't, you know, they're not just recycling other stuff. I mean, we all talk about Endgame, you know, when Cap picks up, you know, Thor's hammer.
So cool. I
mean, that was one of the coolest moments ever, and that was something fresh. There wasn't something that was done, and you know, they had somebody that was playing Captain America for the first, well, okay, it wasn't the first time, but, you know, Chris Evans had basically been in the role for like 10 years. Yeah. You know, like he'd been there for a decade, and like now this was the culmination of his point. And I still think as well with Chris Evans, like I hope he stays retired from the part. I'm happy with what he did. Let Sam Wilson take over the Captain America. Yeah. Like, he's fine. It's cool.
Yeah, as much as I miss the character, I think it ended off so well and it was wrapped up so well. You know, it's almost a shame to take away from that.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with Logan. It's like, if we are going to do it, I've already stated my stipulations, and I hope Lord Feige's listening. But otherwise, nah, just keep him dead. Keep him dead and bring back, you know, get Daniel Radcliffe, you know, as, or who else actually could be Wolverine?
That's a new video. Tune in next week.
That's a good point. Yeah, we can debate that. But yeah, Lois, I mean, it's been great having you on to discuss a great topic like this. And to everyone else listening, thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Until next time, cheers.
Bye.